And that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for Outdrink the Coverage in
Car Motor Company is your destination for classic and late model vehicles in north central Texas, located at 302 South Caddo in downtown Cleburne. They have everything you're looking for, from classic cars and trucks to late model cars and trucks, convertibles, and SUVs. If you'd like to call ahead of your visit, they can be reached at 817-666-1111. With inventory changing weekly, there's a little bit of everything at Car Motor Company. Be sure to visit the website www.txcar.com. That's www.txkar.com to keep up with their ever-changing inventory. They're open from 9 to 5:30 on Tuesday through Friday, and at 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock on Saturdays, closed Sunday and Monday. And also, if you mention this advertisement and Texas 2 during your next visit to Car Motor Company, they'll give you $200 off any vehicle purchase. Stop by Car Motor Company while you shop and eat in historic downtown Cleburne. Again, you can give them a call at 817-666-1111 or visit their website at www.txcar.com. That's www.txkar.com.
Hey, I mean, that was a good point.
I think we might start seeing some go back.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of the Texas 2 podcast, the Outdrink the Coverage Baseball Happy Hour number 2. My name is Ryan Fox, joined alongside Terry and Noe. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Doing well. How about you?
How about you, buddy?
I'm doing well. Had a great weekend. Y'all have a good weekend?
Not bad.
Yeah, nice and relaxing.
Yep, we are just an hour away from first pitch for the Rangers as they start a 4-game road divisional series, AL West divisional series, against the Oakland A's, the in real life version of the Major League Indians, as they're now up to 17 and 18 during the 2024 season. They've won 10 of 13 and have won 6 of their last 7. And the Rangers start that series in about 1 hour in Oakland. It is Monday, May 6th. The first week of May is almost concluded. It's been a really eventful one for the Rangers. And a couple other unfortunate injuries as they seem to be snake bitten so far in 2024. First, Nathan Eovaldi being put on the 15-day IL with that right groin tightness. They took him out of, I think it was Thursday night's game against Washington the night before they took off to Kansas City for that 3-game series, which we'll touch on later on in the show. And then now Wyatt Langford out with a hamstring strain. Just seems like the Rangers, they're pretty snake bitten so far at this early point in the season.
I don't know if that one, though, isn't a blessing in disguise with Wyatt Langford. I think it allows them to sit him and let him kind of refresh and kind of, figure some things out. He has not hit the ball well, but he's not
Mhm.
struggled really either. It's kind of he's in a weird middle. You know, some people are like, well, why did the Orioles already send back down Jackson Holiday yet Texas keeps Langford up? Well, Holiday looked overpowered. Like, I mean, Holiday looked like he had never seen a fastball over 85 miles an hour. He'd never seen a curveball. Wyatt Langford has not looked overpowered. It's just he's just not having luck with the ball. And so I think this kind of allows them to sit him with the excuse of, oh, hey, you know, your leg, you can't play, instead of possibly hurting his confidence and sitting him just by saying, hey, you're not playing well enough right now.
Yeah, and then with Jackson Holiday, he started off, I think, 1 for 33 in his major league career. I think he was batting 057 before they decided to send him down. And Langford, it's the same, you know, not the same deal in the sense of, you know, I mean, he's hitting a lot better than Holiday was. But another thing, when you think about all these injuries that the Rangers have sustained so far, I think it's one of those things where it's better that it's happening now, you know, than it would be if it was happening in September or late August, you know, right before playoff time when you're trying to fight for a playoff spot at that point in the season. It's probably better to be sustaining these injuries, at least early on. And boy, they've been snake bitten, like I said, like crazy. You look at Josh Young, Evaldi, now Langford. Josh Spores was out for a while. He's back. Brock Burke's on the 60-day. You know, they've just, and both with their lineup and the starting or just pitching overall, they've just.
Well, then you got Seager basically playing like he's hurt. You know, he has struggled. You know, and again, no, this is that one of that difference of winning a World Series and not winning one is everybody's freaking out now, and they're literally on the same pace as they were last year at this time. So you know, this season's not over. It's not won in June. Yeah, it can be lost in June. Look at the way the Marlins started; they lost it in March. But you know, you're not going to win anything right now. You just want to kind of tread water until it's time to kick it in.
Yeah, and then speaking of the Marlins as well, they just made a trade, and this just seems to be the first indicator, if their record wasn't an indicator already, that they're going full-on tank mode as they trade Luis Arraez, that the guy that's been their best hitter for the past few seasons. I mean, there was one point for most of last season where he was batting consistently over 350, and like especially into like July and August in the season. And something we were talking about pertaining to that trade, actually something interesting that happened was at the AA level, while the AA affiliate for the San Diego Padres, the San Antonio Missions, the trade was made Friday night, and then it was kind of an interesting timing for that trade, as one of their players, after just reaching second base, found out that he was traded along with one of his teammates mid-game. So here's the clip for that.
Luke Montz has come down to the home plate umpire. He got word from his trainer in the dugout. Montz is coaching third base. They got his attention, and Martirella's out there at second, pointing at himself.
He's
going,
like, me?
What'd I do?
You know, there's the story of the
Nathan,
I can't remember the guy. He was traded from the Expos to the Cubs, and he got a hit on the same day for two different teams.
Yeah,
it's kind of reminiscent of this. You know, just also, does anybody notice at the top doesn't match the shirt and the pants? That's a weird. That's a weird color combo. I don't appreciate that. San Antonio, do better. Speaking of, we need to have that on one of these baseball happy hours. We got to indoctrinate Ryan in the world of what looks great uniform wise and have like a ranking of the best uniforms and
power ranking for MLB.
Joel Youngblood was the player.
Yeah, Joe Youngblood.
He hit the ball off of two Hall of Famers, Fergie Jenkins and Steve Carlton.
That's right. I just saw that. The other day, and that's what made me think of that. When I saw this, in fact, I might have saw the Youngblood thing because I watched this on YouTube, and YouTube does a real good job of shaping that algorithm for you. But yeah, it's just interesting. But now I do want to say this about the actual trade. Isn't he kind of a lightning rod type of player though? Like, isn't he one of those that might ruffle some feathers and things like that? Because isn't there some barking between him and a couple other former Marlins?
And I'm not sure. I haven't seen
great investigative reporting here on Outdrank the Coverage.
Yeah.
I don't tend to really get into too much of the drama like that, but there was something on ESPN. Somebody, a former Marlin, called him out, and he called them back out on another podcast. I mean, I don't think we've gotten into Drake Lamar Civil War yet, but it's, they were barking about it. And I think he's kind of considered one of those that maybe he's a stat hound. Like, he'll take the hit over no matter what the situation is. So I don't know. But yeah, you're right, though. It does show that the Marlins got fool's gold last year. It happens almost every year. A team that shouldn't make the playoffs makes the playoffs, and it actually hurts them long term because it forces them to kind of keep that same team the next year that really kind of played above their abilities. And so, and you got to bite. You got to bite and hope that you've actually created some kind of foundation, but obviously they hadn't.
I always find it odd, especially now. It seems like he has a high batting average. To me, because he has a high batting average, he is going to get that stigma of, he's just swinging just to pad his average. Yeah, I don't like that, because back when I was watching baseball religiously, back in the 90s and early 2000s, batting average was a very important stat. And you had enough guys that got to around 280, 290, 300. Mm-hmm. You could field a very formidable team that could contend for World Series every year. But now that's not the case.
Yeah. So, I always joke that the 2011 Rangers broke me, and they did. But what really, really broke me is where baseball started going after that. And it became the home run and, the 2-run home run or nothing. And, I don't know if it was Joey Gallo or somebody basically saying, hey, it's better for me to swing for the fence, because if I get a single, that doesn't usually mean anything. And it just, the war, and that's another topic for another day. And, I know, Noah, we hate to admit this, but we've reached that age where we're the old men bitching about new things. But in saying that, war has been around for 20 years now. So war started in my 20s, and I'm still not a fan of war. I think we have, I hate to say this because as a baseball guy and a numbers guy, I love baseball numbers, but I think we've tried to go too deep, too far, and we're just making crap up out of thin air now.
I think it's because of the athletics, Billy Beane.
No, I just think it started before that. It started with Bill James. Bill James, sabermetrics. I mean, that was pushing that a long time ago. And it was, and the problem I have with it is it's again, I feel like I said this every time we do a show, Noah, but I say we don't, we used to celebrate the losers. We used to talk, damn, those late, those early 80s Astros never quite got to the World Series, but they were fun to watch, and they had some epic moments and, things like that. We were just talking about it a few weeks ago. The 77, 78 Texas Rangers, man, they were really good, but they get lost to time because they didn't win a championship. And it's the same thing with how we play the sports now. Everybody just tries to do the same thing because that's what the percentages tell them. And so what it has done is it's created this, it's copy, it's copy and paste. We don't have teams that play for the doubles like, the Whitey Herzog Cardinals. We don't have teams that are, 4 deep on the pitching staff and they play for, 7 innings and get to the bullpen. Everybody swings for the fences. All the pitchers throw as hard as they can. And it gets boring.
Yeah, baseball has really become an analytical game more than anything. I think back in the day, like you were mentioning, is more based on feel or like a game by game basis. It's more of like, hey, this guy's not hitting it against lefties, or this guy's not pitching well against lefties, so let's take him out and bring in our righty or something like that. It's become a very analytical game. And I'm not too big on that aspect either. I think there's still managers out there like Bruce Bochy who kind of play the game or manage the game by feel and by how each individual player is doing, more so than what the league averages in a certain statistical category.
But I bet he's using analytics more than we realize, because he's even said he uses it.
Well, yeah, I think he still uses it.
I'm not saying there's not a place for it at all. But it's just the biggest issue is when everybody comes to the same conclusion on how to do something, then you've got 32 teams all just doing the same thing. That gets boring. The NFL is the only sport that somehow makes that work, because nobody really does anything particularly different. in the NFL from team to team. You have philosophical differences, and one team might run the ball more. But other than terminology, most of the plays are all the same. That works for football, NFL somehow. For baseball, it doesn't, because every team, no matter if every team's trying to just hit home runs or if every team was just trying to play small ball, you've got to have that balance to make it enjoyable for everybody to watch.
Well, maybe it's because of parity in the NFL, because really there's 2/3 of the teams that enter the season, they have legitimate Super Bowl aspirations. Like, they go in that season, they have a good shot at making it. MLB, it's 6 teams, if that. I mean, let's go down the list this season. Like, what? The Orioles, Phillies, Dodgers. Braves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even the Yankees this season too.
Yeah, Yankees, Rangers. Like, who else? I don't really count anybody else, really. I mean Guardians are good. Brewers and Cubs are good, but
Royals. But I know everybody's getting big on the Central right now, but I feel like that's just a lot of coincidence that they all kind of got hot at the same time. But they're going to eventually fall back to we're still a little early in the season to start setting concrete foundations of thoughts and things.
This is my favorite time of the year, though.
That's why you love the idea of can the Mets continue this after everybody buried them, things like that. Washington
or the Mariners. Mariners have one of the best starting rotations in baseball right now.
Well, we knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
The Mariners, it's can they find enough runs consistently over the season? That's going to be the thing, because when the Rangers offense is playing well, when the Astros offense is playing well, they're going to still score on really good pitching enough that you're going to have to score back. And that's the only that's the thing for the Mariners. And for the West, nobody's taking hold. And as a Ranger fan, I'm glad, because I don't think the Rangers could take hold right now if they needed to.
I don't know. I think that A's are about to get to 100 wins.
I don't know about that, but this is going to be a pivotal series, though, for the Rangers in Oakland. If they drop, they somehow go in there and just drop 3 or 4, that'll put them in 3rd place. Because in that scenario, that would probably put the Rangers behind Oakland. But I don't see that happening. No, I'm not saying
it wouldn't shock me if Oakland swept Texas right now, but it's May. I know. Even when I was a kid, I realized early, because if you're a Ranger fan, you knew hey, we're hot going into the All-Star break, and then lose 9 of 10 out of the All-Star break and you're out. You just learn not to trust the early part. And also, I just think we're in an era where everybody kind of, I'm not going to say they don't try, but everybody kind of has the agreed we'll all go about 90%. And then as the season goes along, you kind of started, stepping up that intensity. And then by the time you hit August, everybody, you're fighting so I just think it's way early, but I'm like, no, it's fun. It's really, really fun, because you do get to see, because some of these teams will figure a way out. Oakland, will it be Oakland? Will it be Washington? Will it be the Mets? 3 teams that nobody expected anything of that have started decently. Can the Marlins figure it out and make another run? Because let's not forget, last year they were really, really bad until they had a big winning streak. So I love this time of year, but you have to remind yourself it is early.
100% agree. But hey, baseball needs all this kind of excitement and fun. Yeah. Even though I don't really care for the analytical push in the sport, I do like that they've shrunk the time of the game to 2 hours 40 minutes, or a lot of times less than that. So
that's kind of on the longer end at this point, like 2:45. Some of these games are running like 2:10 to 2:20 now on average. So if you're pushing 3 hours, that's long even with the pitch clock.
I think that's one of the best things they've ever done, and I'm actually watching more games because of it.
Well, and that's why because the last time we did one of these, our first one, that literally was the day before, was when Tony Clark came out from the Player Association saying that the clock was the reason for injuries. And it was just like, that's really head scratching, because everybody has basically said, hey, this is awesome. Even people that, and I know there are still some hardliners who will say they're never, they're going to like it. But even people that I know that were claiming they wouldn't like it before are now like, you know what? Yeah, that's kind of awesome. And I love the extra base rule in the regular season. It's just like the 3-on-3 for hockey. It's fun in the regular season because you don't want to get the game over and get on. You want to find a winner, but you also don't want to kill your bullpen for 2 weeks to find that winner. So anyway, I don't know where I was going with that, but that's my point.
And so with the Rangers are going into Oakland tonight. First pitch will be at 8:40 Central Time, 6:40 local time in Oakland at the Coliseum. That's another thing I want to ask. Have either of y'all ever been to the Oakland Coliseum? I know it. I don't know what year it opened. I know it opened. I think it opened in like the 60s, maybe.
I vaguely remember one of the times with my dad. He was a truck driver, and I'd ride with him in the summers and stuff. And I know we went through like San Francisco and Fresno, and I think we drove past the Coliseum, but I don't, I've never been in there or anything.
Yeah, I was watching YouTube over the weekend, and there's this guy I've been watching for years. His name's Troy Dan. Yeah. He's from Canada, but he just vlogged. Like he spent a weekend going to the Coliseum for the first time and then just filming the infrastructure and just how many empty seats there are. It's really sad to see because there was a time where that stadium would fill up. I mean, it's been a while.
Yeah, but see, even in the 70s, the Charlie Finley A's, payroll was always an issue. Mm-hmm. That's why that great team that – at one point was besting the Big Red Machine of Cincinnati, that great team. That's why it couldn't stay together because he couldn't afford it. Yeah. So Oakland, and even in the late 80s, when you had that run with the bashing A's, it wasn't like the city was like the Red Sox fandom or, even the Ranger fandom. So it's baseball, all the sports, but baseball especially, it's always been a kind of a fight in Oakland.
The Oakland Alameda County Coliseum opened its doors in '66 to the Raiders, and then 2 years later, the A's.
That makes sense. Where did I thought when the Raiders started? Did they start in Oakland and then go to Los Angeles and then came back? Okay.
That's why it's so confusing.
Yeah, because I think when they played in LA, they shared the Rose Bowl with the Rams, if I'm not mistaken. So that's kind of got that mixed up, but that makes sense.
Actually, I think the Rams in 1980 moved to Anaheim.
Oh,
I think
maybe I can't remember.
Yeah,
that's right because they played on the Angels field.
Yeah, so that's in '79 the Rams made it to the Super Bowl. That was their last year in actual LA proper.
Yeah, they played at where the Angels played because they had a dirt field. San Francisco had a dirt field. Houston had a dirt field. There was a time when that was kind of fun until you talk to the players. They're like, yeah, that was the worst thing ever.
Yeah, because they're like running like Tim Brown's running a post. He's on grass and then he's on dirt and then he's on grass again. So it was I don't ever think it was ever level.
Oh, probably not.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, so they were the Oakland Raiders up until about 81, and then 82 they moved to LA. And then in 95, they moved back to Oakland. And then, of course, in 2020, they moved to Vegas.
And maybe it's time for Oakland to understand that maybe they just can't carry a sports franchise anymore. With Golden State, that's kind of a shared thing with San Francisco. And let's be honest, let's see where that goes because it wasn't like Golden State, sells out 99% whenever they're not good. And there was a time when Golden State they were talking about, well, what's this franchise going to do because it can't find its way out of its hole. So it's just it's the way it works now, man. And good on city. As much as I'm a sports fan, good on cities that say, look, guys, y'all make billions. We're not funding it. And if you put it to the votes and the voters say yes, well, then good on you for funding it. But, this idea that cities owe, and as big of a sports guy as I am, cities don't owe sports franchises stadiums.
Yeah. And I know there's been an effort by the athletics front office to, I don't know, either renovate the Coliseum or build a new stadium entirely. Probably both propositions have probably been brought up. And I think that's Oakland, the city of Oakland probably is the same argument that you're saying, like, you play here, but that doesn't mean we owe you a new stadium. I think that's exactly why they're trying to move out of there and follow the Raiders over to Vegas and get their own new stadium.
Yeah, but I mean, so are you going to all of a sudden then start spending? I mean, because if you don't, you're just doing the exact same thing. That's going to wear off. So the Ranger ownership found this out. They put this new stadium out, put an air condition. It's a roof. You don't have to stand outside. And they thought, hey, that's great. People are going to come. Well, people didn't want a new stadium. The ballpark in Arlington is a beloved stadium by Ranger fans. It says loved by Ranger fans as Camden Yards is by Oriole fans, as Red Sox, all that. And two, again, the Ranger fans were still scarred from 2011, and just not only that, but just how it turned in the end with Josh Hamilton and his problems, and Ryan Washington and his problems, and Ian Kinsler, mad, and it just, as all things like that end, it usually ends bad. So everybody was burned on that, and so then they realized, what we got to do? We got to spend our tails off and win. And people will forgive us. And guess what happened? Everybody is forgiving them because they won a World Series. Now, I will contend, is this a thing that's going to hurt the Rangers long-term winning a World Series? Does that make the owners decide, hey, we won it. We're not going to pour too much money in? Because I kind of feel like, and I get the idea with the contract and stuff, and I'm glad they didn't give Jordan Montgomery a big deal, but still, I'm kind of worried that this World Series might actually trump a long-term run for the Rangers.
Yeah, and then it looks like we have a question from Mr. Ray Bennett. I believe that's Terry's father, if I'm not mistaken.
Father? Ooh, I am your father.
So when the injured Ranger pitchers start coming back, Taylor Malley, Max Scherzer, and Nathan Eovaldi coming back, whenever the rotation gets to full strength, what happens to Dunning, Heaney, and Gray? I think probably the same thing that happened to those guys last season, when they brought Jordan Montgomery over as well, and when Max Scherzer came back during the ALCS, that they sent Dunning, Heaney, and Gray into the bullpen. And I think that's probably what they'll do when it comes to full strength.
Well, and all those guys aren't going to come back at the same time, and all those guys aren't going to come back 100%. Jacob deGrom, I'm not counting on this year.
Not this year,
what they say. It's been proven. A Tommy John is 18 months. After that, you're great, but it's going to be 18 months, and we won't hit 18 months till like August. Yeah. So I am not counting him. So you're going to need these guys unless you're trading. Now, again, Gray started really bad, but the last two games he's pitched well, even in the loss.
Yeah, he's got a sub-3 ERA now. I think, and if there's one of those three guys listed that would probably stay in the rotation as some of these guys start coming back, it probably would be John Gray. So I think with Andrew Heaney, I think he's better in a long reliever bullpen role, and you can never have too many left-handed arms coming out of the bullpen as well. I think Dane Dunning is one of those guys. He's probably, when it comes to his starts, he's probably the most comfortable if he can go 4 or 5 innings. So I think he especially last year, towards the latter half of the season when they moved him to sort of a long reliever role, I think he excelled in that as well. And it's good to have guys in your bullpen that have starting experience or, multiple inning experiences, especially earlier in the season, because if you bring back a Max Scherzer, then he goes out with an injury in the third inning or, whatever, something like that. Then it's good to have guys like that in the bullpen who started the season and have a lot of innings pitched in a starting role to where they can go for another 3 or 4 innings just so you're not using up too many arms out of that bullpen.
Great point. This is a good problem to have.
Yes.
Where you have depth. That's usually been a issue for the Rangers in years past.
Yeah.
And having pitching depth. Now, back in the day, when Nolan Ryan was involved in the organization, it was good starting pitching depth, but now it's more a combination of some starting pitching, but really good relief pitching, and that's something that I haven't seen as a Ranger fan in quite some time. I don't know about Terry, but just from my experience.
And you can tell that at the end of the day, Mike Maddox has been the pitching coach for the 2011, 2010, all that run, and this one, because when you think of the pitching, nobody stands out until you get to the playoffs. And man, if Nathan Eovaldi and Colby Lewis aren't brothers in the playoff Ranger lore, I mean, both of them will be perfectly okay during the regular season. But man, you get them into the playoffs and they just turn it on, and that's what that's what this staff does, and that's why again, it's easy to stress, but man, you just can't worry. You just gotta trust the moves, because to me this feels exactly like last year did, except for nobody else in the West has taken off. So instead of feeling like you have to play 65% ball, I mean winning 65% of the time, you're fine treading water as long as nobody stretches out. And I don't think anybody in the West is. I do think the West will play better through the thing. I don't think the Astros are completely gone or anything, but
No.
But I do think the West is treading water. I think the Central is a kind of false hope right now. I think they're a bit of a pretender division.
And when you look at the Astros, their starting rotation overall still in shambles. I think Christian Javier still on the IR. I think Hunter Brown made his return sometime this past week, or maybe even today, but he didn't do too well. But it was his first start back from injury. You know, their rotations really hurt. I think they're kind of in the same boat in the Rangers in that respect. If they can get back to full strength and stay as consistently healthy as they can, again, it's a long season. There's going to be, you know, it's like that quote from Lou Brown in Major League. You know, people, they get sore arms and, you know, strained muscles and stuff like that. It happens, you know, but I think the Rangers and the Astros are both in that kind of boat respectively, especially when it comes to their starting rotation.
Yeah. And again, you know, do you try to trade like you did last year? Do you go for it? Because I'm just using teams tend to trade for the same players, but you're looking at like Arizona hasn't started well. So would Jordan Montgomery be back up on the block? You know, things like that. I would prefer, honestly, if it happened, I'd rather just punt on the year and not trade arms. Again, that winning that World Series can either insulate you and allow you time to rebuild out and fill in some holes, or it allows you to give up. I'm going to assume they're going to say like we want to keep winning. So if you don't have to trade the farm this year to win this year, you can be like, you know what? Okay, we just didn't have enough arms. Let's retool. Let's make some decisions. Let's go back at it again next year. And I'd rather them do that, because that's dynasties and long runs in quicker when the farm system gets depleted, because you start trading those bodies and those arms.
Yeah, and that's something that there's people out there that say, oh, well, the Rangers won the World Series, but they're going to be just like the Nationals whenever they did it. They lost, but when they won the next year, they pretty much clean house, and they didn't re-sign guys. They didn't have that much depth in their farm system. But I think it's the polar opposite for the Rangers. I think they have a lot of strong arms, even in AAA. With Jack Leiter, again, he didn't have the greatest start of his MLB career, but I think he'll get more innings later on down the road this season. And guys like Mark Church, who have had a really good, even though he's injured right now, he's had a really good, season so far at AAA. And then, and they just had to bring up a guy from AAA, a guy who'd been on the roster to start the season, and Yerry Rodriguez. He's coming up for Nathan Eovaldi while he's on the IL. And then today the Rangers brought up Jonathan Ornelas for Wyatt Langford, one of their outfield prospects playing at AAA. He's batted .278 with 11 RBIs and a .720 OPS. Again, obviously that's going to be in a placeholder role until Wyatt Langford comes back. And then again, talking about Eovaldi before, Aaron Jackson, one of our listeners, and he was on the show with me last week. He was talking about the update for Nathan Eovaldi per Kennedy Landry. There's no hernia. There's just a mild groin strain, which is kind of what was expected. I think when they took him out of the game on Thursday, it was kind of more of a precautionary move than anything. But it's a good thing that it's just a strain, and that it's looking like he'll be back before June rolls around.
Yeah, it's a long season. You can't just have people pushing to play 150 plus games. So it's a smart move.
Yeah. And do you guys think Corey Seager's at 100% yet? Do you think there's any underlying things that's just not being publicly stated about his slow start? Or is it just one of those things where the expectations from how he played last season are so high that just, as far as from a fan's perspective, anything less than that just seems, not a failure. That's not the right word, but it's just a hard level to, live
Yeah,
up to.
again, where it's the same thing with Evan Carter and even
Yes.
Wyatt Langford and how he started in training, spring training.
Yeah.
But for Seager, I don't think that he's hurt right now. I think though
Mhm.
that hernia. I mean, let's remember he basically lost not only most of spring training but most of his
Mhm.
off season.
Yep.
And so I just think he's slow. And again, I also think there is again that hey, let's just let's stretch our legs into this season. Let's everybody else right now is not taking the world by storm in the West. So
Mhm.
we'll get our stroke when time's needed. And so again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm just baseball is just played different now, and it's just everything is in August, and just survive till August is kind of how it works now, and it's kind of all sports have figured that out. Just survive. Hottest team usually is not the best team. Just be the hottest team.
Yeah, that's the story for the Rangers playoff run last year. I think you mentioned it here on the show before, Terry, and on the Outdrink the Coverage happy hours that the Rangers had a good roster last year, but I think they got hot at the right time, and that was a big reason for their historic run throughout the 2023 playoffs. Again, the only team to go 11-0 in a postseason run. I think that's a really good point. It's not always about the talent that you have, and we saw that with like the Dodgers last year and the Braves. Going out in the divisional round, both of them, they both lost to the Diamondbacks. The Braves lost to the Phillies, and then the Dodgers were taken out by the Diamondbacks in the divisional round. So and at that point, both those teams were mashing, in the regular season. And coming to the playoffs, they're probably a little burnt out or a little tired or something. And then, especially on the National League side of things, the Diamondbacks were one of those teams. They were 84-78 going into that postseason run, and they got hot at the right time. So I think that's a good point.
Well, I'll put it to you this way: in a 7-game series, who wins? The 2023 Texas Rangers or the 2011 Texas Rangers? Because I think the 2011 Texas Rangers wins. It doesn't even need 7 games. I think they might win in 5. Again, that 2011 team, it will get lost into time. It'll be remembered as choked. All that deserved, not only because of 2011, but what happened over the next few years. That literally was a dynasty that was right there that just fell apart. But man, that team was loaded. That team, especially the 2011 year, toyed with the AL. I mean, it wasn't even close, man. They dominated, then in the end kind of throttled back. They didn't win 100 games and all that. But if you were around watching that, Noe knows that it just felt like every weekend they won 2 out of 3. Every 4 game, they won 3 out of 4. It just felt like they never had bad stretches, and it never felt like it was they got hot. Last year, the Rangers got hot. There's nothing wrong with that. Hell, St. Louis, who beat Texas in that 2011, they were a got hot at the right moment team.
Yeah, because I think the Cardinals in that 2011 season, I think they were the 5 seed or either the 4 or 5 seed going into the playoffs. So it's just another classic case of getting hot at the right time. And I'm probably with you. I think the 2011 team over the 2023 team would win in a best of 7 series. It's kind of hard to choose between the two because they're just
now. If it went to a game 7, I would bet on the 2023 team to win that. If it went to 7, I would bet on the 2023 team to win it.
Yeah, I agree. And again, those are the guys I grew up with. Like I was 10 during that season. So
shut up.
Like seeing those guys like Colby Lewis, Josh Hamilton, and Michael Young, all those guys. And the game, even though it was only a decade ago, but the game was played so differently back then too. That's what
we were talking about earlier. That's why I said, the Rangers not winning and collapsing the way they did, and just how 2012 went and 2013, and then but also just the game start. It's all about analytics. Again, I'll look it up. Joey, I think it was Joey Gallo said, "Look, it's better for me to strike out trying for a home run than it is for me to choke up and hit a single because my percentages of scoring aren't the same." Blah 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 blah. That's where baseball is right now. And I don't know if it ever changes because even if a team bucks all that and wins, nobody's going to trust it. It would take a team building a dynasty off of that to get people to come off analytics.
Yeah. And then Joey Gallo, doesn't he have more career home runs than he has career singles?
I don't know.
Is that true?
I'm about to look that up.
I
I'm
think he's
pretty
right.
sure.
I think at one time he did. He was that weird. Again, the Ranger fan base got weird, but he was one of those that people love so much. Like I'm like, God,
It might have been more so his personality than his playing. Although I believe he was a Gold Glover in right field.
I know he was a good player. And
Yeah,
again,
2020 and
in
21.
today's world, he's a valued player because again, and I will say this: the strikeout thing gets overplayed at times, and outs and outs and outs and out. Whether it's a strikeout, yeah, I know if it's a guy on base, yes, I understand there are situational times when a strikeout is a bad out, but I am glad that we've pulled away from a guy striking out that makes him mean something. It's just an out. But I also don't like the fact that we don't value singles and doubles anymore.
Yeah, it just seems like everyone's swinging for the fences nowadays. Did you find anything on Joey Gallo, Noe?
He has 201 home runs in his career,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not sure about singles, but he has 530 career hits.
Yeah.
100 of those are doubles.
Okay, so that's 300 right there are the home runs and the doubles. So
Oh my god, that
Yeah,
was
the
not
rest
far
are-
off.
Yeah, I don't think he has many triples, but so most of the rest of those are probably singles. So
and
yeah,
again, nothing against him, but he was that weird. There's always a dividing line in every fan base, and in large fan bases or teams that are really really old, there's multiple dividing lines. But the Rangers dividing line of like the fans before 2011, and then the fans of 2011 through 2020, they just had this love of Joey Gallo that I didn't understand. Like they were ready to sign him when he was, all that was out. They were ready to sign him to $100 million deal and stuff. And it's just like, no.
Well, you know why?
thank God they didn't.
Why?
They wanted another Josh Hamilton.
That's a good point.
Yeah, outfielder slugger. That makes sense.
Yeah. Going back to y'all's fantasy question about the 2011 Rangers versus 2023 in Game 7. I've been tossing it back and forth. I think I'm going to go 2023 because I'm not sure who the starting pitcher on that 2011 Rangers team would be in Game 7. Would it be C.J. Wilson, who's probably their best pitcher, but not as good in the playoffs? Or is it Colby Lewis, who is a borderline Hall of Famer in the playoffs? But
wait. All right, so here, do this. Take those teams, flip the managers. If it's Bruce Bochy, you're going both of them. You're probably going one for 3, the other for 3, and then figure it out after that. If you're Ron Washington, you're going by feel, like total feel, like hey, just whoever I feel. The other one, be ready. That's a good one. I think it's Colby. Colby always just felt like the guy that when you needed a big play. And let's also not forget Derek Holland.
Dutch Holland, yeah, I loved him.
He kept the series going the year before. He kept the series going at San Francisco.
He did get the 1 win. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, as far as just pure best one game pitching performance in Ranger history, that one's right up there.
Yeah, I mean, he went like an 8 1/3 or something like that. Oh my god,
I mean, it's up there. But yeah, and that's the one thing that those two teams have the same is their pitching staffs are all kind of just a bunch of hobgoblins, because the 2011 bullpen was very dominant until they needed to be, and then they struggled. And then the 2020 or the 2023 bullpen was very terrible until they needed to be. So who do you really, really trust in a 7 game? The one that pulled it out for a month, or the one that had done it consistently but failed? That's the fun things. That's where the baseball stats are fun and fun to talk about.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that bullpen, just that whole lineup from that 2011 team, like Neftali Feliz,
Alexio Gondo,
Darren Oliver, old guy.
Lefty.
Yeah.
Was Arthur Rose? No, Arthur Rose is 09.
Yep, he was on that team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Former
Arthur
Mariners
Rose.
closer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh
You
my
always got to have that former closer that Chapman. You got to have that guy that's still got the gas, but for whatever reason, he's just not the closer anymore. For some reason, all champion teams always have that.
Yeah, that's true. I think Chapman had been on another team that something similar happened.
Chapman's done it a couple times now, hasn't he?
I think so. I'm trying to think of the other team. It was
I know
really
the
recent.
Cubs.
Yeah. I think
Wasn't it?
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of might have been another team after that. But anyway, yeah.
You brought it up earlier though, right? I don't want to be the Washington or the Royals. Though the Royals went to back-to-back World Series. That run was kind of like the Ranger run, but they did get a World Series out of it. But it kind of felt like it got unfulfilled too. That's why I try to tell people, even if it looks like it's set up perfectly, it doesn't happen most of the times. That's why you got to embrace it when it does.
And the Rangers postseason run was probably a year or two earlier than most people anticipated.
If it would ever happen.
On a run. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, if it even would ever happen again, that's my point. Is the world is littered with teams that coulda, shoulda. We thought we're going to,
that's right.
And it just so when it happens, it's so pure when it happens, and it's so rare. But once it starts to happen, we just all assume, it's going to keep happening. We all fall to that, and you gotta. The great ones know when to step back and go, okay, let's stop now when it's time. And that's where, like in sports, the Yankees were great for so long. Where the Belichick and the Patriots were great for so long. Knowing when to cut with people at the time it was needed, they had, outlived their value. And that's the hard part of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
the Royals.
I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
The Royals kind of did it right, but it just didn't last long. The problem with them was actually in 2013 they had a really good team too.
Exactly.
And they kind of came on late, and that carried over to 2014. And then 2016, I think they were 81-81, so they were still competitive, but they had built that team years prior. Yeah. They just got to the point when they were actually good. All those guys from that farm system were in their late 20s, early 30s. So they only had a short run at competitive to the top, and it was a good run. They just couldn't sustain it. That was all.
Yeah, Rangers GM Chris Young was on that roster too. I think when they won, did they win it in 15 or 16? I think it was 15.
He got a World Series ring with them, and you also got to remember. You said it best that they had their run and they ran it as far as they could. And John Daniels, and again, we're going to have shows one day about this, the odd Ranger fan hate for John Daniels, because it makes no sense to me. But John Daniels back in like 2016 said it like, unless you're the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox, at that time, the Red Sox, and you're willing to spend $150 million for every player, you have to ride your talent as long as you can, trade as long as you can, and then accept that at some point you're going to have to tear it all down and do it again. And so that's the question we have with the Rangers. We have this like 5 or 6 year window. And for me, I'm like, what are you doing after that? And are you going to try to keep going, or are you going to tear it all down and they just become the 65 win Rangers again? And I just don't want that.
No, and I think their building up of their farm system that they've had has put them in a good position, at least potentially, for years to come. Just with the farm system that they've built, I think they have a top 3 farm system in baseball. And I think they just have to continue to be smart, with both their offseason or other free agency acquisitions. And I think they did a good job last year again with that midseason trade, getting Montgomery. I think they're going to have to hit on a trade for either starting or relief pitching before the trade deadline of this season as well. If they're going to, I think that would give them their final oomph and final push to make another run for the World Series this year too.
Aaron Jackson asked us to talk about Shohei Ohtani's start and also the Dodgers. Hey, look, it sure is funny how everybody was ready to conspiracy, all that. And then when the FBI kind of laid out everything, everybody was like, oh, okay. And the whole time Ohtani's just head down, ripping. I mean, that's impressive to me.
Yeah, it's scary. I think he's batting .364. He had 2 home runs in their game. It was either Sunday or Saturday. He had a 2-homer game. He's been mashing the ball, and it's scary. He's being this effective, and he's not even pitching. This is just him when he can only focus on hitting because he won't be able to pitch again until next season. I mean, he's been
let's no. Does he pitch again? Because I don't think he does.
ever. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I think he does.
I do too.
I really do think he'll pitch next year. That's part of the reason why you pay him $700 million for 10 years. Like you're getting 2 players for the price of one.
Yeah, I don't think that was ever really in the cards. There's a reason Babe Ruth had to pick eventually, and the game is even way different compared to back then. There's no way that they allow him or he can even keep up the level of being great at both of them to justify not being great at like being, do you want one guy that's good at both, or do you want one guy that's amazing at one? And I just think I don't think that they ever really cared that he would pitch. It's the Dodgers. The Dodgers don't care about 700 million. They care about just keeping a machine going, and you can have him just be a hitter and play defense, and that'll be good enough.
Yeah, and like Aaron mentioned, Walker Buehler has had a good start. And Yoshinobu Yamamoto, the pitcher they signed from Japan, you wipe out that really rough start he had when they played the Padres in South Korea. He hasn't lost since then. He's had a phenomenal start adjusting since they moved back. Since they started pitching in LA and the regular season really got into full swing after spring training. He's been really good. So I think you're right, Terry. I think at least for right now, they don't need him as a pitcher. And, he's been phenomenal, one of the best hitters in baseball. And I think a big reason for that, because he was already an elite hitter anyway. But now since this is really his primary focus is just hitting, being the everyday DH, I think he's gotten even better offensively.
No, let me ask you something, dude.
Okay.
Let's say he signed with the Rangers. Because, until the whole Bally's thing, a lot of people, I never understood why, but a lot of people felt that Texas was going to be the favorite. So let's say he signs with the Rangers, and then all that betting stuff happens. I don't think he's able to kind of just melt back into the background in Texas, even a World Series winning team, Texas, but still a Texas team that doesn't have the star power as the Dodgers. I don't know. I just don't think that. I think the pressure would be greater in a smaller market where the media would be focused more on him 24/7 during that whole betting thing.
Well, one, I don't think he would have ever left the West Coast. I think his options would have been Seattle, Dodgers, back to the Angels.
Okay, let's just say he stayed with the Angels. Good point. So let's say he stayed with the Angels and then all this happened. I think the same thing. I think it plays different.
That for most players, I could probably see that where it would get to him, but he could just be one of those guys that can just compartmentalize and just put that all to the side. And once he hits the field, he transforms back into the best player in the world.
Yeah, and I think you made a great point, Terry, about him kind of falling back because of the star power. Not to mention just the market and how this team is covered in the Dodgers. But they have a star-studded roster. They have Freddie Freeman. They have Mookie Betts. They have Clayton Kershaw. There's more than one guy that's going to take the limelight whenever he's on the field. So I think that does make it easier too.
Yeah, well, I mean, with the Angels, he didn't really have to. I mean, he had Trout, but it was just them two, and that's why they were always average at best.
All right, so you bring up Trout. Let's talk about it. Another injury.
Mm-hmm.
He's out. The Angels wanted to let us know, hey, it's not for the year, so that means it's probably August or September.
But it's not for the year, but close enough.
Close enough. Has he done enough to be a Hall of Fame player? If, let's say, he plays for the next 5 years and they're all okay, but never great years or never even really good years. They're, 18 home runs and 70 RBI years and, 250 average, and he only plays about 80 games a year. Has he done enough to make the Hall of Fame?
I'll let Ryan answer first, and then I'll answer.
You know what? It's tough. It really is, and it's tough because of the teams that he's been on. You know, like roster wise, he's obviously always been on the Angels, but the rosters that he's had on, he hasn't really had a chance to win. I mean, and since his first season when he was drafted, and then he debuted for them in 2000. Was it 2011 or 2012?
2011. Yeah.
2011 when he made his debut. I can't have the Angels even made a postseason appearance in that time frame.
Yep.
Yeah, he's had one postseason appearance.
2014 with
That's right.
Josh Hamilton. He came over
Mark
there.
Trumbo.
And he didn't play particularly well, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they got swept.
They did. But in saying what you're about to say, I mean, baseball is still the one sport that God bless them that championships don't rule all. I will give baseball 1,000% credit for that they don't do the whole, hey, championships matter, so let's put in guys or let's keep guys out because they haven't won. Aaron Jackson said yes because sports writers have an outsized love for him. I don't think it's outside. I think Trout is legitimately this era's Mickey Mantle. Now, his injuries are for different reasons, and Mike Trout lived a different life, but just pure on the field, what he did, even when hurt, and what he could have done, he is this era's Mickey Mantle. I do feel it sucks that I don't think we'll ever see peak Trout again, but we never truly saw peak Ken Griffey Jr. And if you want to compare, he's kind of had the career that Ken Griffey Jr. had. Started really hot, and then injuries just really kept him from ever truly reaching a pinnacle of top 5 baseball player ever.
And Griffey was on that pace until he went to Cincinnati and started having the injury issues. I'm glad he finally kind of turned the other corner toward the end of his career, kind of like what Frank Thomas did toward the end of his career when he went to Toronto and Oakland. But going back to your question about Trout, I think he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, he has almost 400 home runs. He's been an MVP 3 times. He's been a runner-up for MVP another 3 or 4 times. So definitely a Hall of Famer. It's more for his individual performances. Unfortunately, a team is not a one-man show. So unfortunately, the Angels just can never build a roster around him competitive enough to make it to the playoffs, let alone even reach the World Series.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And, just after that, I might have to say yes. I was kind of not sure. But again, it's like you said, Terry, it's kind of a, when it comes to accolades in baseball, it's more of an individual team or an individual thing because one guy doesn't, one guy can obviously improve a team, but I don't think one guy alone makes or breaks an entire team's performance. I mean, he can definitely help their odds and give them more wins. But, I think as far as his individual accolades go, you take aside the rosters he's been on and the lack of playoff appearances. Again, that wasn't necessarily his fault.
Yeah.
I think he's done enough to be a Hall of Famer. Now, first ballot, no, but I think eventual Hall of Famer, yes.
Yeah, I do kind of agree with Jackson on that one. I don't think it's outsized, but I think if he gets in, it's first ballot. I think that I don't think there's. I have that whole first ballot, 20th ballot. To me, you either are or you're not.
Yes.
That's one of those things I would change. But anyway, so you had put on the outline, Ryan, producer of this show, pretenders, contenders kind of question at this point.
Terry, say it right.
What? Oh. That gun. Who gonna be the pretenders and who gonna be the contenders? Butch Davis. Thank you, Noe, for putting me in my place. I appreciate that.
Cowboy assistant and defensive coordinator.
Yes, we love him. Even though he was terrible after that, he did some really crappy things in North Carolina. But anyway, you had put on the list. Let's talk about the teams who we think are real, who are going to make playoff runs, and then maybe teams who aren't. And some of these might be record-wise flipped to where they are right now. I will still contend. I think the AL Central just are all getting hot in a random moment at the same time. I do think Cleveland is real. But again, Cleveland, what were we 7 years ago where Cleveland was real and this owner won't pay. And so they're going to they're gonna reach a limit, and then he's gonna get rid of them. So I think they're real now, but sadly, I don't think they're built for the long term.
Yeah, I think the AL Central overall, you can kind of look at them like that with the Royals. I have the Royals as one of my quote unquote pretenders. They are 20-15. They are second in the AL Central, but again, they're kind of offensively, they're kind of in the middle of the pack in the league. And although their pitching has been solid overall, I just don't think I don't even think they'll be able to keep up with Cleveland. And for that alone, I mean, I could probably see them squeaking in. And I know it's early, probably a little early to be, making this argument, but I could see them squeaking in and being a wild card team and potentially winning to get a bid into the divisional series later on this year.
I don't know, man. I will say this. I talking about numbers. One of the numbers that I have noticed in all of sports tend to matter. Unless you have those weird teams like the Dallas Cowboys this last couple of years where when they win, they just blow teams out by weird numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But point differential matters. And Cleveland has a plus 44 point differential or run differential in baseball. At 23 wins, the Royals have the exact same run differential at 20 wins. So I think Cleveland, I think Kansas City is closer to Cleveland than we want to give them credit for. I don't think either team really can consistently keeps up. One of them will have to win the division, and I think it's Cleveland. But I don't think there's another playoff team coming out of the Central this year.
That's fair. And then run differential can kind of be, one of those could be inflated or deflated in baseball. Because when you look at situations like what we saw on Saturday with the A's while they were playing the Marlins, they scored 20 runs.
Yeah,
They
that's
run.
true. But as Tom Grieve always has said, things always average out.
Mm-hmm.
Especially
in a 162 game
yep.
season.
And for the people like asking about Corey Seager and how he started, Tom Grieve would always say, look at their career numbers. They're going to always pretty much end up right around there. And so I still contend all that's going to be the same when it comes to that kind of stuff with run differential.
Yeah, I agree. And then with that, Corey Seager, I think his slow start is more so, like you said, having no spring training. I think him and Nathaniel Lowe came back maybe in the last or second to last spring training game and surprise before
but now Lowe has came out and been really solid. Now he hadn't had the power. He hadn't had the power that he had last year, but he's hitting the ball.
Yes, and he's been doing well. And when I remember when I went to the last Ranger game I went to, which was Thursday, not this past Thursday, but the one before, when they were playing Seattle at home, he had his first home run of the season, and it landed like right in front of us, which was awesome. So I think, and he's been hitting over. He hit the go-ahead run on Sunday afternoon, and the Rangers come back against the Royals when Jonah Heim tied it in the bottom of the ninth, and then the Rangers have moved their quote ghost runner in the 10th inning to third base, which is Leody Taveras. He moved forward on a Corey Seager single or infield single or ground out, something like that. He was moved over to third, and Nathaniel Lowe hit that go ahead, which ended up being the game winning RBI. So he's been great, both offensively and defensively, for the Rangers coming back so far. And I think they needed that, especially with the injuries they'd sustained up to that point, losing a big time infielder contributor like Josh Young, having Nathaniel Lowe kind of I don't know if veteran's the right word for him quite yet, but I think a more seasoned player.
I think he's earned that. I mean, this is his fourth year as a major. He's now, been through the playoff wars. And again, I think with the Rangers, I think you're just trying to survive. And that's that. This is why teams don't repeat. This is why it hasn't happened since the Yankees. And it's only happened amazingly only I think it was 19 times, some weird number in the modern history of the World Series, because it's one of those, any sport, whether it be hockey, basketball, or baseball, when you're playing so many games over a stretch, it takes so much out of you, and then you add all those extra games, and that's it's just really hard to bounce back from that, and that's why you don't see repeat winners, and you don't see You know, it's more rare. It's more common to see like the Rangers, even though they lost back to back, but they went to back to back, and then like the Royals, they went to back to back, lost 1-1. That's more doable than winning 2 in a row or 3 out of 4 or anything like that.
Yeah, and like you said, it happened 19 times, and baseball's been played since what, the 1880s, 1860s, something like that. So it's just, and of course you factor in the modern World Series and playoff format. You know, but still, that's a long time, and only 19 times happening. It's just a rarity, to say the least. It just doesn't happen very often.
I like it. It means it's hard to it's a competitive game. It's a very mentally challenging game. Yeah, that's kind of the reason why I liked it when I first started watching it. I mean, outside of like, all the home runs that were being hit and some of the larger than life characters that were like, I think one of the last characters I remember is probably Manny Ramirez.
Oh, Manny being Manny. Adrian Beltre had that, him and, it took Elvis bringing that out. And it's so funny how, Beltre went from being, and Manny the same way. They both were being criticized as being sullen or, moody and all that. And they just had a personality that somebody had to drag out. And it's, again, baseball's kind of like NASCAR now. They all might be wearing different uniforms, but they're all doing the same thing. And it's just got kind of boring. There's not true personalities. Mm-hmm. And everybody's worried if somebody flips a bat too many feet down the line. And baseball's at a weird point right now. And it's fun to talk about that in of itself because, I don't like all the changes in baseball, but I do like a lot of the changes. Like we talked about the time and things like that. I just wish that we'd have teams be more willing to do things differently.
Yeah, and there's all those, quote, unwritten rules in baseball that kind of apply to that. You kind of duck your head and just go about your business. I think a cool thing that, has been implemented into like the national broadcast and for Major League games, we've seen it on Apple and ESPN when they have the on-field, mic'd up interviews with the players. They have one with Brandon Marsh of the Phillies on Sunday night, and it was very entertaining. They were asking him like, what if he could pick 3 teammates to start a rock band with? Who would he pick, and what would the name be? And then as they're asking him, they hit a fly ball to him, and he's running, and then he says something while he's catching it. I think as far as the media goes, when they're covering baseball, especially like in a live broadcast format, I think they're trying to implement ways to give the players an opportunity to, kind of be personable and just, and do. I think they're trying to do that, but it hasn't become like a day-to-day part of the game quite yet. But I think it will in the future.
Well, because you got gatekeepers and you've got people like, again, I'm going to have former Ranger Jeff Fry on here soon, and we're going to talk about it. And I love him, but he's a gatekeeper and he complains about all the new rules. And I'm like, dude, you've got to adapt to your fan base. There is no sport, music, movie. There's nothing entertainment wise that has ever forced the audience to adapt to them. You adapt to your audience, and the audience now likes that. And they realize, hey, a dude in left field can name his rock band from his thing and still make a play. Because guess what? If you've ever played the game in left field, you're probably thinking that same kind of crap as a ball was being hit to you. People try to make this shit be more like life or death. I'm just going to use an example. People are complaining that Micah Parsons has a podcast in the off season. What the hell do you want him to be doing?
Just sit at home and do nothing.
Yeah. What do you say about Travis Kelce, or back in the day when everybody had their own radio show?
The beautiful Harvey Martin.
Yeah. Oh, is it because they won Super Bowls? It's okay.
That justifies it, but it doesn't. It didn't change anything before. But that's the same thing with baseball. Like you've got to make this, and that's why. I get it. I understand jersey sells, but the biggest thing they're making a mistake right now is not allowing baseball players to wear their own uniforms during all-star stuff, because that's how you identify. That's how you connect. That's how you like teams. That's how I always, kind of dug the Phillies because they just looked really cool in their all-stars when they were wearing their maroon red instead of their red, things like that. And they're losing that kind of connection. Also, they can sell a jersey. And I get it, man. You want to make money, but at one point, what that extra billion matter over losing your individual connection to these sports and these fans and stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember just even when I was little, which wasn't that long ago again, that in the All-Star games, they all wore their own individual uniforms.
Like all good 4 years.
Yeah, and all the American League, teams would wear all their home whites and everyone else would wear their, team colors, like whether it's purple, red, whatever, they'd all wear their own uniforms. And it was cool because you could, actually get a feel. And it honestly might have been easier just to keep up with each individual player because you're like, oh, this is a guy from the Phillies, so it's got to be Bryce Harper, just for an example. And just it's one of those things that's just money has taken that over because they signed that deal with Nike to make all these uniforms. That I guess part of that contract included the All-Star game where they wanted to create unique uniforms that matched, that were just aligned with whatever city they're playing in. Like when they played in Seattle, they had that. Mariner blue.
Have they announced what the Ranger ones will look like this year? Because they'll have the Texas Ranger red and blue.
Yeah. I haven't seen any concepts be released yet, but I think it'll be probably similar. I know the All-Star logo itself is kind of got like some gold and some brown in it too.
Yeah.
Kind of like implementing some of the Rough Rider colors or the minor league system team colors for the Rangers. They kind of have that navy blue of the Express in there as well. So it could just be a mix of both the Rangers and all their minor league system colors. I'm not really sure. I think if anything, they probably will stick to the traditional, red, white, and blue and the Rangers uniforms. But I don't know if they'll do like the Rangers, the font that they have on their uniforms or like the script. I don't know if they'll do anything like that. But I think they shouldn't be released for too long. I think if they would release the concept sometime in June.
I'll check here in a second. What are y'all's thoughts? No, what are your thoughts on the Ranger uniform? Like, do you like it? Does it, like, where do you rank it? Because it feels like it's a very meh to me.
Yeah, it's not. It's one of those. Yeah, it's just not bad. I like when they do their alternate looks, like the 70s look, which is more like the blue and the red, and then the 70s font. I like that more. I don't like the generic stuff. Sometimes it works. Like I guess I'll do NFL for an example. When the Jaguars in 2018 went back to their older helmets, they had a more generic uniform. I was happy with it just because it looked way better than that trash they had before.
Yeah.
But in this case, I mean, the Rangers have had some really good uniforms. Yeah. So, yeah, meh is not a good thing in this case.
Bring back the red home jerseys.
I mean, yeah, that's fine. I think I have that 20-year theory. I always use the Jets as the perfect example. They have two great looks. And all they need to do is every 20 years is just rotate back. I'm like that with the Rangers. I like the red because I haven't seen it in a while. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I've seen it for a while, I'm ready for the blue. I think one of the things baseball has dropped the ball on with when it comes to uniforms is allow all your teams to wear all their jerseys of their history if they want through the year. Make every home weekend be a different look. And they did that a few years ago. In fact, that's what kind of brought back the baby blues. A few years ago, they did that where every weekend, they wore their 78 team. But like there's the 1983 Rangers that were beautiful red, like just really pretty red that I would love to see again. And that's one of those things I think baseball has dropped the ball on. Let teams, instead of having the 3 uniform rule, let teams wear all their classic jerseys whenever they want every year. And I think people would love that.
Yeah, but Nike doesn't want to make that many jerseys apparently because they're limiting teams.
That would make them real money. That would make them more money.
Yeah, I agree.
Than the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Like think of an All-Star game. Think of like every year the All-Star game, each team got assigned a different era of their jerseys. So like this year's All-Star game, Corey Seager would be wearing the 1978 Ranger home jerseys, yet Marcus Simeon would be wearing the 1983 Ranger home jerseys, and all that in the All-Star game. And you'd have all this color on the field, and that would sell more jerseys than putting everybody in these monochromatic one look with a little patch that shows your logo.
Yeah. And the other deal with the Nike and Major League Baseball contract are all these City Connect uniforms. What do you guys think of those?
I'm fine with those. That goes to the part of I think the Rangers and baseball need to have more jerseys.
Yes.
I mean, again, I don't think the Rangers are that bad. I would like to see a look with the pants were cream color.
That's what I was going to say.
But other than that, I think they actually look pretty darn cool. But yeah, that's what they need more of that kind of stuff. Some of them are darn right ugly though, like the Philadelphia one don't make no sense. But some of them look really, really good.
And then Detroit, they revealed theirs on Sunday.
I haven't seen it. I mean, I know they revealed it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's it's not that different, honestly, from the Pistons City Connect. It just has Motor City on the front. It's kind of like black with like a blue and gray gradient going down. I think it looks okay. I think it's one of the more generic ones. My favorite one are the Cubs, the Wrigleyville ones.
Yeah, I like those.
Those are awesome. As far as the City Connect goes, I like those, and I like the Reds because they have the all black and it says like Cincy on the front or something like that. Those are probably my favorite ones.
What's one team that not Rangers, but one team you want to see win a World Series that either hasn't and ever or whatever?
Ooh.
It doesn't matter what the record is right now.
No. Yeah, you just want to not whether it be you like this edition or you just the history. For me, I'm thinking of teams that haven't won in forever.
Yeah,
I have two teams.
Okay,
one in each league. One for the AL. It's only because I used to. These were my favorite uniforms as a kid. Outside of I guess them and the Braves were, but Chicago White Sox.
That's what I was going to say. Mm-hmm.
I just love their announcers. I love those uniforms.
They won a World Series. It's hard. It's one of those that it feels like it was just a couple of years ago, but it wasn't. I mean, we're talking 20 years. Yeah. But isn't that one of those that feels like Chicago has been like kind of like the Cubs. Both teams, they both finally win, and yet they've only won those one and both kind of quietly went back down, but it feels like they were around a lot longer.
Yeah, the White Sox, the early mid 2000s, it was like just that 1 year, and then the other years around it were more just mediocre. I think in 2008 they might have won the division too, but it was a team that was built on some strong veteran uniforms. And Aaron Jackson brought the yellow 70s A's uniforms. Yeah. Yes, those were beautiful.
Oakland still has great uniforms now. When they wear the green. Yeah. Like the green button down looks. I mean, that is. I hope they keep the same color concept because
the Sacramento A's.
But who is your NL team on that one, Noe?
Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, that was gonna be one of mine. I'm a big fan of the one, the Big Reds that upset the A's. I was a huge fan of Lou Piniella because I had read his book, Sweet Lou, as a kid. And also was beating the A's, and that was just kind of fun. But also, I loved Eric Davis. I've told you that before. No, Eric Davis is one of my top 3 favorite players that wasn't a Ranger or Astro. I just loved him. I love the nasty bullpen. Just that was that kind of fun team that, again, all the personalities and the characters, and that's a town that deserves that again.
Yeah, they were. I mean, it is such a very passionate fan base. You and I watch it with the Bengals currently. The Reds are on the come up. They're a team that will be good again pretty soon. They're on a current struggle right now. I think they lost 5 in a row, but they're gonna be back. And I've always liked them. Keith Mitchell, or not Keith, Kevin Mitchell back in the day. Reggie Sanders. Yeah, I always liked that. It was a team that didn't last that long. That it was they won in 1990, and then they kind of had a couple of decent years after that, and then they kind of just went back to being okay to mediocre.
Yep.
But yeah, Cincinnati and the White Sox. So I guess Terry, I took yours.
Well, I also had Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah. See, the problem is with Pittsburgh. Here's my grief with them. They were a team that did start off well.
Mm-hmm.
They were one of my 1 month, like beginning of the month team.
They started off well last year too.
They've done this several years.
Yeah.
The ownership doesn't care if they are good. Now, you could compare that to the Cowboys, but they turn a profit. They're a very profitable team. So that's really all they really care about, just turning a profit every year. They don't really care about actually winning. So that's my gripe with them. I love their uniforms since forever. But yeah, and their stadium is one of the most beautiful stadiums in all of baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it just annoys me that they don't really try to win.
No, I agree with that. Also, Baltimore.
The O's, yeah. Camden Yards.
Their ownership makes it really, really hard to like them. Their fan base, their team, their look, their stadium, their history, all that makes it very much fun to watch. But then that family and that just like what some of the things they do as an owner, like last year, suspending the announcer and just, things like that just make it really, really hard to watch sometimes.
That was so dumb. What did they suspend him for? Wasn't he just giving like a stat about
how they had struggled against a pitcher or something like that? And, just a very benign what you do.
Did they suspend the producer that made that graphic too, or what? No,
I think they did actually.
It's petty. It doesn't make any sense to me. I remember seeing that and just getting annoyed because all he was doing was giving a simple post-game report. The O's were on this just little.
I don't even think it was post-game, dude. I think it was in the middle of the game, and it was a stat like at that moment. I mean, again, it was just a benign stat.
Yeah, it was.
We're also, we're in a weird part in the existence of mankind where stats and facts, people try to bend them, and they don't want to hear them, and they act like they don't exist and stuff. But dude, I mean, all he was doing was just literally giving a basic fact.
He's just giving a report.
That's right. That's right. He's right. Baltimore sold their team, but still, I just meant we're just talking about overall, Aaron. Just overall teams that haven't won in forever, and you want them to win, but why you kind of don't want them to win? Like I wanted the Astros to win, and then the fan base just I don't know, it soured me.
Yeah.
And it made it hard for me to like what Houston does. And it wasn't even really the cheating. It was how everybody responded in that group about the cheating, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think a team that I'd like to see win the World Series, my one for the American League, it was probably going to be the White Sox, but I'll probably stay in the Central and say the Twins. I know they haven't won it in a long time, and they have a top 3 stadium that I'd like to visit.
They won. The funniest thing about the Twins, they're kind of like the baseball version of the New York Giants with Eli Manning. They won two world champions with it around each other, but they were by no means a great team for a stretch. They popped up in 88 and won, or 87 and won, and they popped up in 99 and 91 and won. And you had some of the crossovers, but that wasn't, it wasn't like the Cowboys winning in 92 and 93, or you know what I'm saying? And so I always have felt that them and the Giants are kind of that same weird championships, and I guess you could even say the Mavericks, but the Mavericks at least had dirt being the that one constant between the two random championship years.
Yeah. And then also that's a good point, because when you look at those Twins teams, they probably were similar in the Giants in that respect. When the Giants, when they went into that season where they beat the undefeated Patriots, I think is either that one or when they beat Brady the second time. One of those seasons they went into the playoffs at 9-7. And
2011.
That's 2011.
2011. Okay. So, and then with the Twins, they went into those postseasons kind of like this past year's Diamondbacks did. Yeah, kind of like maybe 8 to 10 games above 500, got in as a wild card and kind of just
especially the 87 Twins.
Especially the 87.
They got lucky because it was during a time period where they would alternate home field advantage in the World Series. And in that case, they were playing against St. Louis. And, the Whitey ball, or small ball, as Terry likes to say, that was a great St. Louis team in '87 with Vince Coleman and all them and Ozzie Smith. They should have had the home field advantage, but because of the rules at the time, the Twins got to play, and they were so strong at home.
Yep.
But
which is funny because if you think of the Metrodome, you would think that would have played really well to small ball, because that's what the Metrodome was, one of those hit it up the gaps and let it roll forever type things. But the Minnesota Twins pitching was just so good. And it's weird. The Dodgers kind of feel like the Braves of that era, and the Cardinals, as you're talking about, teams that make multiple World Series, might win one, but you feel like they're going to always leave 3 or 4 on the table that people are always going to scratch their head at.
Yeah, for the Braves, I remember that '96 team that was up 2-0. They went into New York and won the first 2 games. So you're thinking, okay, they just won the World Series in that strike short '95 season, rolling into the World Series this year, going in New York, hostile environment, take 2. They're going to sweep or win in 5 games. And then the Yankee dynasty was born after that. So you never know what happens, I guess. But yeah, that is a good comparison. I think the Dodgers of the current age are the Braves of the '90s. And I think, if they're smart, like what the Braves are doing right now, they're not off to a very hot start. Like you look at they're doing well, but the Philadelphia Phillies have overtaken them in the NL East. So I think conservation is the key for the Dodgers and Braves if they want to make deep postseason runs, because I think they're expending all their energy in the regular season, like y'all were saying earlier.
Talking 87 cards, Aaron Jackson said, don't mention 87. Too many cards, man. The call will live in infamy, and it sneaks brought up by the old heads. Let it go, Dad. Oh, man. That kind of goes with the same of the Ron Washington not pulling Nelson Cruz because he wanted him to be able to celebrate on the field.
Speaking of the team I'm rooting for this year, even though they're in our division, LA Angels. I kind of want Ron Washington to have a successful season outside of his time with the Rangers. I always liked him.
I do too, but it's good. I thought he might be able to surprise this year, but that team is so bad, dude. Like, their owner, for all the people that bitch about Jerry Jones, the Angels owner is what Jerry Jones does when he just keeps throwing money at it and he can't fix it. And it's not always about making the best free agency move. It's not always about making the big wild trade. You got to friggin' build a team. And I credit the owner for trying, but at some point, dude, pull back, figure it out. I just think it's going to take him a while. If they give him time, I think the Angels will be pretty scary in a few years, but we'll see if they give him time.
Yeah, they start off really slow, and they're really, again, like we talked about earlier, the only guy that's really been had a good start for them was Trout. And now that he's gone with his injury, I think, did they put him on the 60-day to start at least?
All they'll say right now is it's not season ending, so do not worry.
Yeah, and with him being gone, I mean, they're just going to be dead in the water at that point. They've already been passed by the Astros, and I think as the Astros start to get healthy, they're going to start pulling away from LA, and LA might just end up.
Oakland's not going to stay there. Oakland's not going to stay good. It's fun right now, but let me ask y'all this:
they're winning 105 games. What are you talking about?
Oh my God.
And like with Aaron's question about the 87 Cardinals, wouldn't the 85 Cardinals be the team that would live in infamy?
Yeah, against the Royals. The blown call.
I don't know. I'm not a cards. I mean, I always like their uniforms. I like their history and whatever, but I don't. To me, just looking from the outside in, I think the 85 one would be the one that would just, make your blood boil, just because they had it in the bag against the Royals, and that one blown call kind of changed the series completely.
Isn't it funny? And you could add Texas to that. It's the Game 6 collapse that lead to the last 7 game.
Oh yeah, because the Rangers started well in Game 7 for like 1 second.
Yeah, had the lead again. Had the lead early.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, the Game 6s are where the collapse happens, and the Game 7s are always the duds.
Boston Red Sox 86.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then 85 St. Louis Cardinals. and the Rangers in 2011. I just would love to see one time the team that collapses in the sixth just comes out in the seventh. And by the way, outside of the Dallas Cowboys, it's kind of fun to be in a sports era where Dallas now kind of is known for 7-game clutches. Dallas is 3-0 in their last 7-game series. The Rangers beating the Astros, of course, the Mavs beating the Clippers, and the Stars beating the Knights last night. I'll tell you what, that to me is the most impressive one.
How about Coach Pete DeBoer now being 8-0 in Game 7s? Unbelievable.
Yep, Cubs 2003 in LCS. He's right. The Bartman play.
Bartman.
It's the 6-game curse. But yeah, DeBoer's now 8-0 and here's the crazy stat. That was the Knights are now 2-2 in Game 7s, and he has been involved in every one of them. Wow. Partly as a Knight or as a coach for them, and then he was also coach for San Jose when they beat the Knights in Game 7 in year 1 of the Knights. So cool stat right there. But anyway,
when are we gonna start calling him the next Scotty Bowman? I'm waiting.
You know, the sad thing is, I know this is a baseball show, but hey, we're kind of drifting here. The sad thing is, it wouldn't shock me if the Avalanche beat them in 6 games. The West is just deep this year in the NHL.
What like a murder's row of matchups. Like you play the team that won the Stanley Cup last season in the Knights, and then now you're going to play the Avalanche team who won it 2 years ago.
And you upset 3 years ago, or they might have won back-to-back.
Yeah.
And it could be one of those things where, like, you know, the Stars like, oh, we finally got that Golden Knight monkey off our back, and can they come down from that?
I don't think you have to worry about that with them, because for them, it's all about Joe Pavelski getting a cup.
Yeah.
For them, this is that's the seminal moment, and that's what makes, like, Pavelski didn't even have a point in the last series, and it's not because he played bad. It's just, again, the Knights are a great team. They were the defending Cup champs. They kind of played around with the rules to allow them to stack their roster for the playoffs. And so him not having points isn't a good thing. But like Wyatt Johnson, who's living with him, has had a huge playoff. Everybody's literally like, this is for Joe, this is for Pavs. And so I don't think you have to worry about them being happy to get to the next round. It's just now you got to score when it matters, and your goalkeeper's got to be amazing.
And let's assume they miraculously get past the Avalanche, which is no easy task.
Nope.
They got to play a young upstart Vancouver Canuck team or a high-scoring Edmonton Oilers team.
I think I'd rather play Edmonton.
Do you trust Jake Ottinger against the Oilers?
Vancouver just feels like one of those teams, man, if they get going and they're going to start pulling goals out of their 4 flying guys who hadn't scored in 2 years, and their goalie who's never had a shutout will stop 400 shots in a row. That just happens so much. Like the Stars of 2020, that kind of just, you start and you just keep winning and you keep winning. Edmonton kind of has that pressure on them. The Stars have a little pressure. Edmonton has a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I think I'd rather play Vancouver.
Yeah, I'd rather play Edmonton, dude. I really would. I just think that Edmonton's ready to pop.
Because right now, Vancouver, they're a team that's playing better. They won a playoff series, so they're playing with house money right now. They're young. They're about a year ahead of projection.
Mm-hmm.
Next year probably be the year they're going to be expected to get to those Stanley Cup finals. So they could be due for a loss, and if not this round, the next round. And if they make it to the conference finals, that's exceeding expectations.
Kind of feels like what we were talking about the Rangers last year, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Speaking of, go ahead. What?
No, I mean, that's a good point. Rangers were definitely a year ahead of schedule last season, so that is a good analogy. But even if whoever makes it out of the West, I mean, the East is also loaded, right? I mean, right now the Panthers are playing the Bruins in one round or in one side, and then the Rangers are playing the Hurricanes in another. So that's just 4 contenders right there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know who wins this year. I think we're about to have a run where you're going to have a bunch of 1-year winners. All these great teams will just have their moment. I think the Stars will get a cup in the next few years. I think Boston will get a cup in the next few years. Zachary Watson, will the Texas Rangers, will they win the World Series this year? All right, we'll finish back up with baseball. No, I don't think the Rangers win the World Series this year.
And yeah, I agree. And I think it's just like what you were saying earlier, Terry, just with how difficult it is. I mean, not to make back-to-back appearances, but to win back-to-back games. It's just like you said, it's 19 times since the modern World Series format was introduced, about 100 years ago. It's just the likelihood of it is just not very high. But
No.
will they? I think a better question when it comes to the Rangers: will they win another one in the next 5 years, or maybe 2 in the next 5 years? Yes. But the fact of going back to back being so rare and so difficult to do, I don't think they win this season. They might make it, but I don't think they win it all this year, just for that reason.
What do you think, Noe?
I don't think they win this year. I really think it'll be. If I'm going to predict now, I think it's going to be the Phillies.
Yeah.
They know how to play in the postseason, and I think eventually that's going to push them through this season. Now, saying that, what do the Dodgers do if that happens? I don't know, but it'll be a fun offseason or I guess winter break to see what they actually do.
I don't think Texas does this year. I think Texas makes the playoffs this year.
Yes.
I think they probably make a wild card and might get beat in the first game. I don't know if they win another World Series again. It's just way harder, and there are 20 teams right now, and not really that many, probably 9 that feel like they're Texas. We're young enough. We're right at that. I mean, look at Baltimore. Baltimore feels they're there. In fact, Baltimore. I mean, isn't there a world where we see Baltimore taking what the Rangers did last year and doing it? Or they beat the Rangers in that second round and they go on and they surprise the world by winning the World Series 1 year too early. But then I could also see the Rangers, everything working out after this year, and they win 2 of the next 4.
Mm-hmm.
And they do have a little dynasty run. You know, people forget Bruce Bochy's not that old. You know, it's not like he retired as a Giants manager at 85 or anything. If he wanted to go 4 or 5 more years, I think as long as he's having fun, he'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going to last season. I thought he was in like his mid 70s. He just turned 69 a couple weeks ago, so he's still relatively young. He's got some years left, not young, but years left in him. To coach this team for at least the next few years, which will again help big time if they're going to be primed to make another World Series run within the next 5 years. I think at this point Bruce Bochy would have to be at the helm for that to happen. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I told Terry after they won last season that he was coming back as manager for the simple fact that he needs to get to 500 as a manager. Because the shocking thing about Bruce Bochy, he has a losing record overall.
Well, in baseball, that's the fun thing about baseball. A lot of the great ones do. Yeah. Because you even look at like a Joe Torre. You look at it took him failing multiple times before. Casey Stengel failing multiple times before. Bruce Bochy failing, then winning, and then retiring. But I'll ask this question on the flip side of the Rangers. Are the Astros done? Is it over? Or do you still think that they have a fight left in them?
I think they have a fight because they didn't do what the Royals did 10 years ago and just rest on their successful drafting the prior few years. They've actually kept drafting well and kept building up that farm system. And Houston's been on this run since 2015. I can't remember if there was 2014 as well, but I know at least by 2015 they've been a pretty good team. And this is year 10 now of that. And I still think some of their core players are still young enough to where they're going to be competitive, but for another 5 years at minimum. So I don't think they're done. I think they just are very injured right now, and they're going to eventually, once everybody starts coming back into the lineup, they're going to go on a run toward the later part of the summer, and they're going to be competitive, probably get to the high 80s in wins, and they'll still be in contention for the playoffs and possibly for the division title. It's just right now, you wish, as a Ranger fan, I wish the Rangers were healthy.
Yeah,
because they could really take advantage of this opportunity. Yeah, but alas, anyway.
I don't think they make it this year, but I don't think they're done yet.
No.
Even great runs have a year step. Even in the teens, the Rangers had the 1 year. I can't remember if it was 2013 or 2014 with all the injuries. And
I think it was 20. I think it was because I think that was last year of Ron Washington.
Yeah, and they had all the injuries, and Josh Hamilton had completely imploded and everything. But then they came back and, made 2 more playoff runs, and one of them being the number 1 seed. So I don't think the Astros are done fully. I don't know if they can dig out of the hole this year. And I know the West hasn't played great, but I mean, they're still, they were 5-5 this past 10 games. The Rangers are 6-4. That's not a big difference. But every 10 games that the Rangers stay over them, that the Astros actually dig themselves in a deeper hole because they're so far back. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you start too far back, it's just hard to come back.
Yeah. It's just a deep hole to climb out of. Even with that, the fact that there's 162 games in a major league season, that's why whenever I had Terry on the show for episode 2, one of the main points that you talked about, Terry, was the wins while you're as healthy as you can in April and May are the biggest ones because of the fact that you don't want to dig yourself into a hole. So getting off to a good start is one of the best things. Now it's baseball. It's a long season. You're going to have losing streaks. You're going to have winning streaks, but winning these games early is a big thing. And with the Astros, I think a big part of it again is with their injuries, brand new, manager making his managerial.
Yeah, and that's a point people forget is the manager change matters.
Yes, it does. Because when you go from Dusty Baker, the most seasoned of seasoned managers, then you go to Joe Espada, a longtime bench coach, making his first job as a manager of a major league team. It's just a natural drop off, and they're just not going to be, it's not going to be managed the same way, and they're not going to play the same way.
Yeah,
because they're just playing for a different manager with a different style and a different view of the game.
That's a good point.
So, but yeah, it is a big hole to climb out of for the Astros. But again, the Astros are the Astros. So I think at the end of the day, they'll still have that fight, like Noe said. And I think I don't know if they'll be back in the mix for the Western Division title, but I think when we get to that home stretch towards the end of the season, they'll be in the running for a wild card spot in the American League. No doubt about it.
Just want a quick programming note. Next Monday, intern Noe and I will be back for just a normal happy hour, which we'll talk Rangers, but we'll just talk other things too. Probably Mavs and Stars playoffs. Also, here in 14 days, 15 days, or something like that, we're going to get back to our top 5 rivals of the Dallas Cowboys. Our 70s video, Noe, is blown up, dude. Love the fact that people are talking about it on Facebook and bringing up other teams, even though I have to explain the rules 100 times. Just watch the whole damn video, you bastards. But anyway, I just wanted to give those programming notes here as we wind things down.
Yeah, and then I have one more to talk about as well. But before we, and I'll close out the show with that. But before we do that, I want to give another quick shout out to our new sponsor of Texas 2 Seam and Outdrink the Coverage, Manscaped. They're a new sponsor of the show, and they gave us 2 codes that you can use when you shop online at manscaped.com. It's 20% off plus free shipping if you use codes ODTC, and there is one for Texas 2 Seam. If you use code 2SEAM, TWOSEAM, one word, you get 20% off plus free shipping when you order at manscaped.com. And take a look at the Performance Package 5.0. It includes the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra Groin and Body Hair Trimmer, the Weed Whacker 2.0 Ear and Nose Hair Trimmer, and then as well as the Crop Soother Ball Aftershave Lotion and the Crop Preserver Anti-Chafing Ball Deodorant for all-day relief. It also comes with the Magic Mat disposable shaving mats and then 2 free gifts, including the Midnight Bravo Boxers and then the Shed 2.0 Toiletry Bag. $75 value with those 2 items, completely free when you get the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra at manscaped.com. And again, please use our codes here at L4 Media, ODTC for Outdrink the Coverage, and then code 2SEAM at manscaped.com. And then to close out the show, I'd like to give an announcement for our next live edition of Texas 2 Seam. We will be doing our first baseball look back, where we will look back at the 1994-1995 MLB strike. Now, again, I didn't live through that time, but I'll be doing as much research as I can to kind of lay out the show. But
Me
I'll
and
be
Noah
relying.
you're gonna be like Ken's Burns baseball. Where I'm
Yes.
gonna dress in a big white rig. I'll be like, I remember '94. That was back when the right people could drink the right water fountains. Just saying.
Oh, also,
I'm gonna have to rely on both of you very heavily because y'all
Ryan-
was the
Ryan-
greatest.
Ryan, I am so sorry for Terry's comment while you were doing the advertising.
The '90s. I didn't have to use Manscaped. I had somebody do it for
Ryan, you did a
and
great
on-
job. I am sorry for his unprofessionalism.
Oh man! And on that note, that'll wrap things up for episode 6
Love you, Noe.
of Texas 2 Seam, part of Outdrank the Coverage on L4 Media. Thank you so much for joining us on this 2-hour run on the Outdrank the Coverage Baseball Happy Hour number 2. Again, another quick shout out to our sponsors, Car Motor Company in downtown Cleburne, Grandeur Pest Solutions, and of course Manscaped. Again, if you use codes ODTC or 2SEAM, you'll get 20% off plus free shipping when you order online at manscaped.com. I want to thank you again for tuning in. Thanks again to Terry and Noe for joining me. It was a lot of fun as always. And we will see you guys next Monday as they will have their next live Outdrank the Coverage Happy Hour. And then we'll be recording episode 7 of the Texas 2 Seam on Sunday afternoon. So we'll have that out for you on L4 Media's YouTube channel on Monday morning as well. So thanks again for tuning in to today's episode of the Texas 2 Seam Outdrank the Coverage Happy Hour. We will see you guys next week.